In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we go for refuge until enlightened. By the power of generosity and the other perfections, may we realize Buddhahood for the benefit of all. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we go for refuge until enlightened. By the power of generosity and the other perfections, may we realize Buddhahood for the benefit of all. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we go for refuge until enlightened. By the power of generosity and the other perfections, may we realize Buddhahood for the benefit of all. As I already said, today our teacher is J.D. Doyle. J.D. Doyle serves as the core teacher at the East Bay Meditation Center in Oakland, California, and teaches at various meditation communities, including Insight Santa Cruz, Spirit Rock Meditation Center, and Insight Meditation Center, Western Massachusetts. JD completed the 4-year Spirit Rock Meditation Center teacher training in the Theravada lineage, as well as the Community Dharma Leader training and the Dedicated Practitioner program. JD has practiced Buddhism since 1955 in the US, Thailand, and Burma. They worked as a public school teacher for over 20 years. JD holds a BS in Environmental Studies from Cornell University and a Master's in Language and Literacy and Sociocultural Studies from the University of New Mexico. They are committed to celebrating diversity, addressing racial injustice, expanding concepts of gender, and honoring the sacredness of the earth. And JD does use they, them pronouns. And with all that being said, I will turn the time over. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Amanda. And thanks, everyone. And just as a clarification, it was 1995, not 19, I think I heard 1955, and I think I thought Julia being like, what? I wasn't actually alive then, so I can't take credit for anything that was happening at that point. But I probably might have been studying the Dharma at that point, but it was probably in a different realm. But thank you. Oh, it's really a joy to be here. Thank you all. I'm here in California, so it's a little earlier. And so I'm always curious, like what kind of Dharma comes out early in the morning versus middle of the day and late at night. So you get me early morning here. And I'm really, since I grew up in the East Coast, I always have a fondness for kind of coming and visiting you all via this way. So thank you all. So what we'll do is we'll have a meditation for about 40 minutes, and I'll offer some instructions, and there'll be periods of silence. I know I practice in a lineage that's different, and although we have a lot of overlap, please feel free to practice in the way that really supports your well-being. And so you can ignore my instructions if that what works best for you. And you're welcome to meditate in any posture, standing, seated, lying down, moving. It's really a way that you can check in and see what your body is in need of at this morning. I will invite the bell and then offer some instructions, and there'll be, as I said, times of silence. Taking a moment to welcome yourself, welcoming yourself into this space, into this practice, inviting this sense of friendliness as if meeting an old friend, welcoming yourself with kindness as much as is possible, greeting yourself just as you are, however you're showing up this morning, meeting the you who has shown up, not the one who was here yesterday or the one that you wished was here. However you have arrived, welcoming, welcoming. It can sometimes be supportive to bring your awareness fully into the body by connecting with the ground, the earth beneath us, the felt sense of contact, our small earth body resting on the larger earth body, feeling the weight of our body resting and being supported and held by the earth beneath us. And as we feel this connection to the earth, see if it might be possible to relax and let go of any extra tension you may be carrying. Feeling the support of the earth, and perhaps inviting the body to relax by relaxing the shoulders and the neck, adjusting the posture in any way that feels supportive. We're taking some deep breaths and really allowing the exhale to elongate. Maybe softening the forehead and the eyes, relaxing the jaw, and seeing if there might be any other tension that you can relax in this moment, knowing that the body carries so much. This gentle invitation to connect and let go of any extra tension. And as you bring your awareness fully into the body, you may begin to be aware of the flow of the breathing body, this gift of vitality, this dance of reciprocity, the flow of the breath. Feeling the body respond to the inhale and the exhale. Expansion, contraction. And as you bring your attention to the breathing body, you may notice that there are places in the body where you feel the breath most easily. For some, that might be the belly, connecting with the rise and fall of the belly. Or perhaps feeling the breath in the lungs, feeling the expansion and then relaxation of the chest. Or perhaps at the nostrils, or maybe a sense of the whole body breathing, this gift of aliveness. As we practice, it can be supportive to have a home base, a home ground at various points during the meditation. Sometimes, as we establish our practice, or at other times where we need more focus, returning to the home ground, the home base, brings us back to the present moment. The breath can often be a supportive home ground. And for others, that might be the body, feeling the place of contact, or your hands resting on your legs or your lap. And for others, a wider, more spacious home base might be sounds as they arise and pass away. This gentle invitation to have an anchor or a home base can support us in our practice. Knowing that as we practice, the mind will do what the mind does, running into the past, stories and memories, leaping into the future with fantasy and plans, getting distracted by sensations. No problem. It's just what the mind does. The eyes see and the ears hear, and the mind imagines and remembers and thinks. Gently and with kindness, return your awareness to the body, to this moment, this practice, with as much kindness as possible. As we practice, we may notice that the mind gets pulled from the present moment, memories, plans, imagining, allowing all these to be like clouds in the sky, arising, passing away. And as much as possible, staying connected to the body, the sensations of the body, your home ground. And just as the wind will come and rustle the leaves of the tree, will be swept away with our thoughts and plans. No problem. Connecting again and again, beginning again. No need to judge. This is the practice. And if the judging mind arises, is it possible to be kind to the judge? And then connecting with the felt sense of the body in this moment, returning to your home ground. This practice of becoming intimate with the way things are. As we come towards the end of this practice period, more formal meditation, I invite you to take a moment to appreciate yourself, perhaps appreciating yourself for showing up, for offering yourself this time for care, for stillness, for silence, for practice. Or maybe appreciating a moment during the meditation where you met yourself with kindness, where you felt a moment of embodiment or clarity or compassion. Just taking a moment to appreciate yourself, whatever way that arises for you. And then widening that circle to include everyone who's here this morning, appreciating each other for showing up to support the practice, this community, natural Dharma fellowship. And then widening the circle more to include all those other people in our communities, our support us. Maybe those who are taking care of our children while we're here, or someone who helped us get on the computer or supported us in some way, made us breakfast, to the dishes, friends, family, those in our neighborhood, those in our town, and then those further afoot who support us in every moment. Here we are connected with the web, all of those who supported us in this technology, electricity that's needed to connect us, all of the hearts and hands and bodies of the humans who mined the materials, the resources that built the technology, all those near and far that feed us, grow the food, deliver the food, cook the food, all those many people who are caring for others in healthcare and education, libraries, schools, so many ways we can offer gratitude for the human community, those we know and those we don't know. And then including other beings, gratitude for all of the plants, this gift of mutuality, gift of their beauty, their shade, the flowers, wonderful fragrances, all of the blessings of the plants, gratitude, appreciation for all the blessings of the animal. For some, that's companionship. Others, it's awe. All the ways they support the ecosystem with pollination and compost, in so many ways, known and unknown, that we are connected to other beings, plants and animals, fungi, single celled organisms, part of this intricate web. We offer gratitude. And then expanding the circle more to include the earth, this beautiful planet, offering gratitude for the blessings of the water, the rain, the ponds, the puddles, the groundwater, the oceans, the water inside our body, the water around us. Gratitude for the blessings of the water, gratitude for the blessings of the air, clean air, the atmosphere, all that supports our life here, the many blessings of the air. Gratitude for the blessings of the earth, the soil, the mineral, this earth that we call home. Gratitude for the blessings of the earth and the blessings of the sun. Gratitude for this beautiful galaxy and universe where we find ourselves alive and able to practice. And knowing how deeply our lives intertwine, we remember that our practice is not only for our own benefit, but the benefit of all. We offer any merit of our practice to all, everywhere, so that all may be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and take about a 9-minute break, it looks like, to the top of the hour. So stretch, drink some water, care for your four-leggeds if they need anything, your own self in the way that would be supportive. And I'll be back in about 9 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. So wonderful, David, to see you there in the greenhouse. I'm really enjoying that. Thank you. We're offering that. We need that gift. Appreciate that. I'm glad for everyone else who's shown up as well. Thank you. I wanted to start with this, just really gratitude for the land and just really recognizing how much I learn from the land, and really this way that we can reorient ourselves to know that we are earth, that we are land, our own bodies are part of that, and that land is not a resource, that land is sacred. And reminding ourselves of this, we can honor those who have stewarded the land since time immemorial. And it's been my really great good fortune here living in the what's called Ohlone land, the village of Weechin, in what we now know as Oakland, to have this community of the Sagorate Land Trust that is offering just beautiful teachings and learnings for both the indigenous community and for those of us who are not indigenous to this land. And so I wanted to offer that to start us off to we all remember these connections beyond ourselves to the land and that we can remember the gifts of those who are holding this land and stewarding it. And it's pretty remarkable to even remind ourselves that some of the places of the greatest ecological diversity on our planet are those held in stewardship by indigenous people. And it's a small amount of the total. And so, what a great gift and a benefit to all of us to continue to honor the wisdom and the joy and those really beautiful, sustainable communities that we can learn from. And I, I one of the things that I really appreciate about the natural Dharma studies is this commitment to revolutionary Dharma. And I've been really grateful to hear and learn about the monthly online series that's happening. And so I also want to offer today's practice and study and learning and reflection on the karma of forgotten stories in this lineage of revolutionary Dharma, of how we can reconceive, that we can continue to evolve our understanding and particularly uplifting, because I'm not sure if it's in the series or kind of sprinkled in there and not overt, these stories of queer and trans people. And one of the things that I think is so important right now is to acknowledge the beauty of all members of our community and really that those folks, including, in the LGBTQIA community who are really being targeted with a lot of vitriol right now. I know we have a lot of areas of harm and violence happening in our world right now, but really wanting us to remember those um, folks who uh, I particularly feel it because I often work with a lot of young people in the LGBTQIA community, and just knowing that as we're growing and learning and knowing that this was true for myself as well, that the stories of vitriol land in ways that are can kind of really become internalized, and the shame and self-harm that evolves from that is really, really potent. And this place of needing everyone for our community is so important. So I'm kind of throwing in this in the ring, even though this isn't a standard offering for the revolutionary Dharma. I'm joining into that Dharma dialogue. So thanks for coming along for the ride. And so in this area of the karma of forgotten stories, I wanted to start with a story that I found when I moved here to California. As I was mentioning, I grew up in Massachusetts and then moved to California a number of times back and forth, but have landed here for the last 30 years or so. And when I was doing my student teaching in Watsonville, which is south of here in an area that primarily it's a lot of migrant farm workers and a lot of areas of farms and agriculture, there was a cemetery right near the school where I was student teaching. And because I grew up in New England and grew up going to cemeteries and learning from gravestones and just so much information about the histories of the community by looking at who was there and how long they lived and just the numbers and people of different ethnicities and cultures and just the ways. It's just so much you can learn from cemeteries. And so I went to this cemetery near the school because in fourth grade, where it's just the grade that I was doing my teaching in, that's the grade where you study California history. And it was this remarkable cemetery. And it had like a very traditional sort of pioneer area. And then it had an area where there were the Chinese immigrants and the Japanese immigrants, and just lots of aspects of this cemetery that really showed the vitality of the communities that had brought so much to this community of Watsonville. And so I was walking around the cemetery and then I spotted this gravestone, and it was for this person, Charlie Parkhurst. And Charlie Parkhurst is in the Pioneer Cemetery, and Charlie Parkhurst was a stagecoach driver who originally was from New Hampshire and was born around 1812 in Lebanon, New Hampshire, so not too far from where you all are. And one of the things that Charlie Parkhurst is known for is one of the first people that was discovered at this point too that was born like was this amazing like it was called the he was called One-Eyed Charlie, and he drove the stage over the hills from Santa Cruz into San Jose, and he was a stagecoach driver during the gold rush in the 1840s and 50s. And then when he died, and he died of he had a habit of chewing tobacco, so died of cancer. And when he died, his neighbors who had been caring for him and then, were getting ready to put the body to rest, discovered that the body was that of a female, that he was born female. And so it's one of these places, these forgotten stories that we think, oh, here is this person who isn't living, but or that we think, oh, this is only happening now, but this has happened throughout. And it was pretty amazing because right there in the cemetery, it had this on the marker. And so when the kids came, when we went through for to do the field trip to the cemetery, the kids were looking for all sorts of different things: the oldest person they could find, the person who had the shortest life, and then other remarkable graves. And this was the one of the ones that they often saw. And I think it's a testimony not only to those of like myself who are non-binary or gender expansive or trans, but also for just this way that we can move beyond our known, what is known, and be the fullness of who we are. And so the other thing about Charlie Parkhurst is that some people have said that it may be that he was the first biological woman to vote in California. But that's kind of one of these places where we want to take kind of add all these things in. So one of the things that's so interesting about this to me, and as I study and practice in Buddhism and in other ways, is the stories that are told and the stories that we don't hear. And so I just really invite us into this place of receiving the stories of our communities, the ones that are, frequently told, the ones that we have to seek out, and the ones that are maybe just put in the footnotes. And so these are some of the stories that are erased or forgotten. And it's really important that we uplift the stories that have been erased or forgotten to remember that they still are. And then the karma of those forgotten stories is that the karma continues. The karma of these stories is not erased, is not forgotten, because the stories continue to condition and bring forth what's happening in our present moment. I wanted to share another story, and this is beautiful from a beautiful book called American Sutra by Duncan Ryokin Williams. And this is a book about Japanese American Buddhists during World War II. And this book starts with a poem from Nyogen Senzaki, who was a monk. And this is the part of his poem, Parting, from May 7th, 1942. And he was a Japanese Buddhist priest. And here is this. It starts with "Thus I have heard." Thus have I heard, as in, because it's called American Sutra. Thus have I heard. The army ordered all Japanese faces to be evacuated from the city of Los Angeles. This homeless monk has nothing but a Japanese face. He stayed here 13 springs, meditating with all faces from all parts of the world, and studied the teaching of the Buddha with them. Wherever he goes, he may form other groups, inviting friends of all faces, beckoning them with the empty hands of Zen. So I'm going to read that again. This is from American Sutra. Thus have I heard. The army ordered all Japanese faces to be evacuated from the city of Los Angeles. This homeless monk has nothing but a Japanese face. He stayed here 13 springs, meditating with all faces from all parts of the world, and studied the teaching of Buddha with them. Wherever he goes, he may form other groups, inviting friends of all faces, beckoning them with the hands of Zen. This is from Nyogen Senzaki, um, writing on Parting, May 7th, 1942. And Senzaki followed his teacher to the United States when he was 29. And when this reference to a homeless monk is that term where when you go forth as a monastic, it's the traditional understanding is that you're leaving home. And when you're leaving home, you're kind of letting go of a lot of the comforts, a lot of what is known. And then you are guided to pursue this practice. Like, what is it that is in the teachings of the Buddha that is called forth? And it's also this understanding that, that we can be at home anywhere, as we practice, that we can bring ourselves and our whole beings everywhere, and anywhere as we practice together. And it's pretty amazing that despite this place of being uprooted from his community because of his, being Japanese, he still places this place of Buddhism in the United States. He says, wherever he goes, he may form other groups, inviting friends of all faces. Just that lovely extension of like, yes, you are attacking me, picking me up because of who I am, and incarcerating or interning, and still can have this belief that wherever he goes, he may form other groups, inviting friends of all faces, and this confidence that even though we will be uprooted and moved from our moorings or whatever that is, leaving these comforts of social convention, that we will find friends of all faces. And one of the things in this time that was very interesting, if you read the book American Sutra, is that you'll learn, and I learned that the Buddhist priests were those who were incarcerated and interned first. And it really speaks to the power of the Buddhist practice. It speaks to this power to transform and really this way that we can know that these teachings are really transformative. And it's really beautiful to see if you see the photos in the internment camps, the way that the practice of Buddhism continued and supported those communities in the camps. And so that this practice of Buddhism is so transformative and that it transforms us internally, and then it can also engage externally and transform the communities that we're in. So these conditions of the present moment that we're in that are besieged by a lot of vitriol against people who we create scary stories about, or countries, or other ways. It's all been conditioned by these stories in the past. And I think there's so much that we can learn. And when we, especially if we think about ourselves as Buddhists, and what does it mean for us that we're part of this legacy, and the stories of the internment of the Japanese Americans, how do they relate to our own history and connection to Buddhism? As someone who is not born into a culturally Buddhist family, it's amazing to me that somehow, having grown up, in this Irish Catholic community, that I have found this practice of Buddhism through people like this young monk who committed to the practice, even under harsh situations. And I'm so grateful for this linkage backwards in time to this lineage and all the many people throughout time and space and geography who committed to this practice, so that 2,600 years later, here in California, can sit with some of you there in New Hampshire and elsewhere who are practicing. And this lineage backwards and forwards in time. And so sometimes we connect with this sense of the present moment and we think, oh, it's empty. Oh, the present moment is empty. And yet at the same time, it is full of both the past. With the past is conditioning this present moment. And so there is this karmic linkage between the past and the future. And so I wanted to share, this is also from Duncan Ryukin Williams, who was the author of the book that I mentioned, the poem came from. And he says, we might not choose he talks about, in talking about interconnectedness, he says, we might not choose every aspect of how or why we are connected, but that doesn't lessen the linkage, which extends backwards and forwards in time through people and generations and histories. Who we are right now is the karmic linkage between the past and the future. So we might not choose all the conditions that bring us to this moment. We might have a lot of feelings about inequality or justice, or things shouldn't be the way they are. But there is this karmic linkage that we are currently poised in this moment, linking the past and the future. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this term karma. Karma is in the Sanskrit, and in Theravada we use the Pali term kamma, which is not as familiar. And so I'll just use karma today because it's more familiar. And karma actually refers to both the action and the intention. And so we generally say that karma refers to actions driven by intention, so volitional actions of the body, speech, and mind. And so this is sometimes confused with how karma is used just generally in the culture, where, people are like, wow, that's their karma, that's his karma, and that's a little bit of a mistaken understanding, because that's the result, oh, they deserved it. That's their karma. And the karma actually is the volitional, so it's the movement into the action. And so the other ones are often called the fruits of one's karma. So the karma is actually what moves us into it rather than the results. And so what But there's helpful, these kind of more colloquial saying, what goes around comes around, because there is in there that sense of like there is some consequences for one's choices. But really, the karma is more the intentions of their actions. So I want to share this from the Anguttara Nikaya, and this is about karma. And the Buddha says, sentient beings are the owners of their deeds and heir to their deeds. Deeds are their womb, their relative, and their refuge. They shall be heir of whatever deeds they do, whether good or bad. Sentient beings are owners of their deeds and heir to their deeds. Deeds are their womb, their relative, and their refuge. They shall be heir of whatever deeds they do, whatever good or bad. And so this is looking at our actions through this lens of what comes next, the heir of. And so it's a very different kind of understanding of, and it's not only in Buddhism. When if we think about um, other cultures, like in indigenous cultures, there's often the thought of like 7 generations. What will I do now have the impact 7 generations from now? And so we shall be the heir of whatever deeds we do. And I love this phrasing of the womb. This kind of brings the gestation of our actions, that this place where our actions are born and birthed and the implications of them. And one of the reasons why it's really hard to understand this sense of karma is because it's so complex. And generally, we want to think of it as very linear. Like this happened. Why is this happening? This happened because this happened. But karma is non-linear, and there's so many conditions. There's so infinite number of conditions that give rise to this present moment. It's assessed, so like multiple systems and feedback loops, kind of like this understanding of like climate change, where we're looking at it through centuries and through many different ways of understanding. And so many of these karmic understandings we can't actually know, A plus B equals C, because there's so many conditions. Venerable Thanissaro Bhikkhu, who is here in Southern California at the Metta Monastery, says, karma acts in multiple feedback loops, with the present moment being shaped both by past and by present actions. Present actions shape not only the future, but also the present. So this is a little thing to chew on, where the present moment is shaped both by the past and by the present actions. So in the present moment, as you can think about it, like we have all these conditions of what we have done, our habits and other conditions, and then we have the present. And so, and the present actions also shape into the future, because whatever we're doing currently also impacts the future. And so it is in this way that we have not a linear understanding of karma, but this complexity of all of the that has come before us. And this can be really intimidating. For me, when I think about all this, there can be a sense of like, oh my God, we are really a mess. How are we ever going to overcome all of this history that we are in? The histories that have so much greed, so much hatred, so much confusion. And yet, we can look at it at that this moment we actually have the power to influence. We have that power to influence the future, the present and the future. And so rather than feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't do anything, we can actually realize that we have this tremendous capacity to meet the present moment. So, in what the Buddha taught, which is a teaching by Theravadan monk Wapola Rahula, who's a Sri Lankan Buddhist monk, he says, in karma, instead of promoting resigned powerlessness, The early Buddhist notion of karma focused on the liberating potential of what the mind is doing with every moment. Who you are, what you come from, is not anywhere near as important as the mind's motives for what it is doing right now. And so, this is this liberating potential that we have in each moment for what is the mind. And remember, the mind is this mind heart, not just the thinking mind. The mind is doing in every moment. And so, this is a place where we bring our investigations into the intention for our actions. What's the motive for the action? And so there's an example in this that's it's a little simplistic, but I think that it's helpful in understanding, well, what is this meant by the motive? And so oftentimes we're looking at the actions themselves, but we are not kind of bringing ourselves to the motive. And so if the action, for example, unless I said this a little simplistic, but if somebody is putting a knife in somebody's chest, you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And we're thinking about the action. But if we're thinking about the intention, is the intention of that as somebody who's a surgeon, whose intention of care, or is the intention of somebody who's a thief? And the intention is to rob. And so oftentimes we're looking at the action, but this place of karma brings us back to look at the intention of the action. So the motivation. And one of the places that this is so important is that in Buddhism, this understanding of karma during the time of the Buddha was a response to the practice of the day that only the Brahmin class was able to be liberated. And so I'm sorry, I'm skipping. My mind sometimes doesn't follow my notes, and so I'm having to skip forward to find this. And so one of the teachings in the suttas is that not, this thing, not by birth is one a Brahmin or an outcast, but by deeds, by your karma. So not by being born in a certain role in society or are you able to liberate the heart and mind, but by your actions. And so this was considered by scholars to be a great innovation of the Buddha, which overturns the caste-bound ethics of the Brahmin society, was the only ones who could awaken. And so it's the possibility that all people can be free. So not by birth. You don't have to be born in a certain family or certain caste, but by your actions can you be free. And it is through this way that our motivations are, what are our motivations? What are our intentions that we're turning towards that free us? So this is skill that we practice in our meditation, right? Just kind of slowly slowing down and bringing our awareness into the present moment. And not so that we can be good at being skilled, but so that we can be nimble and flexible in meeting whatever is happening in our lives, so that we build this capacity. They build this capacity to act skillfully in the present moment. And so for me, this is so helpful because as we kind of bring our awareness into a small moment, we can remember that the small moments contain the seeds, the fruition of what is to come. So through this place of just looking deeply at this moment, we can then create this momentum, this intention, recondition habits of kindness, habits of generosity, habits of clarity, and disrupt the habits of greed, disrupt the habits of hatred, disrupt the habits of confusion. And here's another sutta which talks to karma that I think is such a beautiful, image. It's very this beautiful evocative simile, and it's from the Majjhima Nikaya. And the Buddha says, just as the shadow of a great mountain peak in the evening covers, overspreads, and envelops the earth, so too, when wise people sit on their chairs or beds or rest on the ground, the beautiful actions they did in the past, beautiful bodily, verbal, and mental conduct, cover them, overspread them, and envelop them. This is a kind of pleasure and joy that a wise person feels in this life. I have such, I particularly think of like New England when I read this because I've spent time on my sister's porch in Vermont and the mountains, like the shadow of the mountains spread. And I love this sense, I think of people sitting on their porch or their chairs or their bed, and just this way that the beautiful actions they did in the past. And beautiful in here is one of the images that the Buddha gives us to orient towards skillful. So when we're acting in accordance with being generous or caring or kind or compassionate, we then have this beautiful result. And it's just as if this mountain, the the shadow of the great mountain peak as the sunset, you're sitting there and you're feeling that. You can allow it to soak in and envelop them. And so it's really important. The Buddha invites us to really allow ourselves to remember and bring to mind and soak in the beautiful bodily, verbal, and mental conduct. So, all of those actions in the past that we have done that have been skillful, we need to remind ourselves that we have been skillful in the past and we all are here. So, something brought us here. So, we have that inclination and these are one of the reasons why it is important for us to allow ourselves to linger and saturate ourselves in this is because so much of the other stuff can really sweep us away. And we can remember, get caught up in that which went wrong or all of the legacies of harm and other things. And so when we can remember, look, that was beautiful. That was skillful. And it may be so small, we're like, I'm not going to pay attention to that. But that is part of what we do, that know that this is a kind of pleasure and joy. And then we can we know that it's beyond just the sense experience, the hits, like, I need this to feel pleasure, but that I can actually feel this pleasure from my actions and the intentions. And so this is how the past and the present also inter-are. And in this, it says, what I did in the past, the beautiful actions they did in the past can envelop them. And so it's so important that we remind ourselves that we made good choices in the past. Then we can rejoice in that. And then we can remind ourselves that we've made unskillful choices in the past. And in not making them anymore, we can also feel a kind of pleasure in that, like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. Okay. And then maybe we will, but we can then feel it being letting go. We can feel that sense of letting go, slowly, slowly letting go. There's this chapter in the Dhammapada, which is one of the earliest teachings of the Buddha, and the title of the whole chapter, and I'm just going to read a couple couplets from it, is called Wickedness. Wickedness, which sounds a lot more fun than what the Buddha is talking about, but it's funny because the translations sometimes are a little Victorian. So, and this is Dhammapada in chapter 9, Wickedness. And the Buddha says, think not lightly of wrongdoing that it won't come back to you. Think not lightly of wrongdoing that it won't come back to you. The pot is filled with water falling drop by drop. The fool is filled with wickedness piled up bit by bit. Think not lightly of goodness that it won't come back to you. The pot is filled with water falling drop by drop. The attentive one is filled with goodness piled up bit by bit. I love this because this is this understanding that each moment, bit by bit, drop by drop, that we may have this beautiful vision of the world or, this understanding, and we just have to think about drop by drop. In this moment, how am I aligning? In this moment, how am I aligning towards generosity? In this moment, I can feel in me like, oh, and then, okay, let's see. And also just place that, like I like the beginning of this thing. Think not lightly of wrongdoing that it won't come back to you. Because sometimes, we think, oh, no one's going to notice. I can just get away with this. And this is the part where we know that there actually is some karmic understanding that is coming forward. And so it's not just this individual me getting away with something. There's this fabric of systems and conditionality that we are all in this network of. And in addition to the individual karma, we have kind of like a collective karma that we are carrying with us that is not just, my actions now. And, some of it we can know, like we can think about, oh, like I do it this way because this is what my family has done. I act in this way because this is what I learned. This is what I learned in the schools. So I learned in my family. This is what I learned in the dominant culture. And so we know and we've learned through studies about trauma and other things that how the body carries this forward. One of the studies I was reading about trauma is that, trauma comes through the body, has been shown to be transmitted between and across families for up to four or more generations. And so sometimes something will happen and we'll think, oh, why did I do that? And oh, I can't believe. And we can think, well, there may be other causes and conditions beyond my ones that I can know right now. And in the studies of epigenetics, we know that there's actually some understanding of the biological conditionality of the genes and how they're expressed. And so that they are lasting influences of what happens in our societies beyond or this understanding of karma in the Buddhist way. And so I think that, as we know this, when things happen and we think, oh, why did I do that? This practice of compassion is so significant because as we practice and we engage with the best that we can in this moment, this practice of turning the heart not to sort of a very punishment way of like, oh, I'm going to beat myself up because this happened, but really the heart of compassion to accompany this engagement with the present moment, compassion, and really a deep place of self compassion to then allow the compassion for the community as well. As an example of that sort of systemic and collective karma, I want to read a little bit from a book by Dr. Larry Ward, who was a teacher in the Plum Village tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's called America's Racial Karma: Invitation to Heal. And Dr. Larry Ward said, "It started before I was born. It began before you were born, too. This turning wheel of racialized consciousness. Its tracks are evident across the face of time and the threads of human connection. Let us propose this is not an intractable condition, but a legacy of human thought, speech, and physical behaviors. Our racialized consciousness and the suffering and confusion associated with it need not continue. This moment in our social history compels us to invite ourselves into a path of discovery, learning, and practices to transform our karma." And so what Dr. Larry Ward is pointing to here is this legacy, is this karma comes from all of these previous conditions. It began before we were born, this wheel of racialized consciousness, and that we can see the threads and the tracks that arise, in our biases and our conditioning. And he says it's not an intractable condition. It may influence, it may be present, but we have this capacity to transform. And so it need not continue. In this, we invite ourselves into this path of discoveries, of learning and practices. And so to me, this is really liberating that there are practices that where we can disrupt this conditioning We can see the evidence of the threads in ourselves and others in our communities, and we can know that it doesn't have to be this way, that we have the capacity to interrupt this legacy of human thought, speech, and behaviors. We have this capacity to transform our karma. And just as in the beginning, when I was talking about the piece from American Sutra, the monk came to study and practice in different communities. And so we too kind of come together in these communities to develop and practice these capacities of the heart and mind. And the capacities that we, with intention and with kindness, we come to this present moment to respond and act, with as much kindness as possible, as much wisdom as possible, as much skill as possible, and holding this place that, there's a possibility of freedom, the possibility of freedom, and that we can begin to attune to, what is our intention? What is our intention? And it can be really small, and we can just begin to see when we are moved, by the wanting mind, that we can feel that sense of greed. And we can then feel the difference when we're like moved by kindness. And then we can feel the difference between, how we hold on and when we're generous. And we can begin with our practice of mindfulness to feel in the body the reverberations of that, the overlay of the beauty when we are feeling generous and how that feels in the body. And we can condition ourselves to continue in that way. And one of the challenges is that so often the grip of security and comfort is what we hold on to, and we sometimes even mistake security and comfort for liberation. That we think, oh, I've made it. Let me just exhale here in this comfort of whatever it is. And so it's sometimes hard to let go of the security and the comfort of the knowing, to let go into like this don't know of, well, what will happen if I'm generous here? It's really can feel like a risk. And we can know from the beginning in the different situations, whether it was One-Eyed Charlie and or if it was the monk in the internment camp, that it's not always pleasant. These situations, they're dangerous. And in these places, can we commit to ourselves in community, at, especially those who are being targeted? How do we support those in our community? And this practice of mindfulness and compassion is where we really bring in, the paramis of patience and generosity, but we also really need this courage. And courage is this place of the heart where it takes a lot of courage to shift our perspective from, what's in it for me? What can I get out of this? How can I get to one that understands that we're not trying to create a place where we maintain comfort and control in this world of impermanence, and that avoiding unpleasantries, pretending they're not there, will be a solution, and that the karma won't impact us. But when we can remember this capacity for transformation, this capacity to let, where we can have the courage to risk letting go of the security of our old habits and conditioning and opening to the courage that lives in our hearts. So, this practice of kindness, of tenderness in times of crisis, this practice of meeting others and listening to their stories rather than having assumptions of who we think they are and how they are. And so it's heartening to me to both remember that I can have an influence on the karma and also to remember all the legacies of the beauty of the past, of people who have been in tremendous difficult circumstances and really had the fortitude and the kindness to continue. And so on this practice of freedom, it is just moment by moment. And as Alexis Pauline Gumbs, who's one of my favorite writers, says, freedom is not a secret. Freedom is not a secret, it's a practice. Freedom is not a secret, it's a practice. So as we bring light to these stories, as we remember the forgotten stories and the karma, we can know that even when we don't know our stories, the karma is impacting and conditioning the present moment. And that we can have this karma of resilience, this karma of celebration of resistance, this karma of turning towards freedom, this karma of showing up. I'll end with a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, who says, the present moment contains past and future. The present moment contains past and future. The secret of transformation is in the way we handle this very moment. The secret of transformation is in the way we handle this very moment. And that's our practice. Thank you. Thank you for your kind attention. We have some time to continue this practice and discussion and reflection, and you're welcome to join in either in the chat or in by speaking into the room. I gave you a lot to chew on, so don't feel free that you don't have to add in anything in right now. But one of the things that I really enjoy is this way that we can continue fermenting, and also just the beauty of knowing that the wisdom is in the group and not just held in me. Like I brought this story forth today, but you all have your own stories and pieces of wisdom. And I also know that I come from a different lineage, and so that it may be a little different way of receiving today than other days. Oh, please, Julia.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you for this. And uh, the meditation also, the meditation was just wonderful. And your comment about if the judge shows up, can you be kind toward it? Really struck me, and I will remember that and practice that. So thank you for that, and also your comment in the meditation about intimacy with the way things are, and I really love that. So those two I will keep with me, and I thank you for that. And then just this whole amazing tackling of karma and the complexity of karma. And I thank you for that. I heard this other teaching on karma once that really this person was saying that, the thing I remember from that was the person who stepped into the river is not the same person as the person who stepped out of the river. And um, I just love that so much and relate to it. And because I've stepped in and out of a bunch of rivers over the years, and it just really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I just really appreciate how you wove all that together. It was a very huge and complex thing. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I just love how you pointed to that point in the meditation where we have influence over, so the judge arises and the judge is conditioned, like I have a very different relationship with my judge now than I used to. And really just this deep honoring of like, this critical mind, if I can use that term, supported me in so many ways to get me here. And yet I actually really need to tell thank you, no thank you. This is one of my deepest teachings. Thank you, no thank you, kind of thing of like, I'm going to try to meet you with kindness. And that is part of this transformation of karma. And that as I can meet myself with that kindness, then that kindness is actually more available in the world. That instead of meeting others with that, I can actually bring more kindness in there as well. And so um, this is the place of the moment to moment and the ability and then the way the past, the present, and the future inter-are. So thank you. Thank you for that reflection. Okay, so before we end, I just want to let everybody know that I offer most of my practices and teachings through Spirit Rock Meditation Center here in California. But I also have the great good fortune of offering retreats as well at Vallecito, which is a mountain, just like your Wellwood is a mountain refuge, but it's off the grid in New Mexico. And so, for any of you who may like to practice in nature, it's quite an amazing opportunity. It's only open from May through October because it's at 8,000 feet in the mountains of New Mexico. And so, if you want to venture away from your wherever, I don't know actually where you all are, I'm making some assumptions there, but you can join me in New Mexico and practice there as well. And then there is also, oh, thank you, Amanda, for putting my website in there. There's also in August this year, we have another trans non-binary retreat in at Big Bear Meditation Center in outside of Los Angeles, up in the mountains as well. And so, Heart Mind Teaching is the website that's put there, and so you'll see everything there. And if you know of folks who are in that community who are trans or non-binary, it's quite a wonderful thing to practice together and to feel that resource and nurturing and joy and community. So you can share that with folks that you know as well or for yourself. Okay, so what we'll do right now is we'll do this beautiful ritual that we do of dedication of merit. And dedication of merit is also another place where we can remember our both our small selves and our relationship to the larger community. And we remember that our practice, we kind of do that honoring of that our practice has impact, has influence, and that we can offer this dedication. And we always are in this mutuality of connection, we can offer it specifically and we can offer it specifically to a specific group of people. If there's a group of people who are in your hearts and in your minds right now, you can offer the dedication of this practice to specific individuals or groups of people or to all beings. And just the sense of like when you drop a pebble in a pond, our actions, they ripple out in all directions. And so that's always happening. And we can really bring that to mind to allow the impact to really be felt. So you may offer this in whatever way is supportive for you, and I'll offer the dedication of merit. So taking a moment to reflect on our practice together today, our intentions, our thoughts, our actions. And may we offer any merit, any beauty, any wisdom from our time to all beings everywhere. May all beings everywhere be safe and protected from harm. May all beings everywhere be free from violence, be free from hatred, be free from greed. May all beings everywhere know the protection of love, the protection of care. May all beings everywhere be safe from harm. We offer this practice for the benefit and the liberation of all. Thank you.